Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. Today's video I want to cover the sale, of course, talk about FFP and the summer window to come. But first, of course, a congratulations to Erik ten Hag and Manchester United in the win of the first trophy in 6 years. 6 years. The League Cup beating Newcastle 2-0 in the final and capping off what was virtually a flawless League Cup run. And it's awesome. It was awesome. It's awesome to see it. It's awesome to have that back. It's just the League Cup, but it feels good after everything, the last few years, the last years. I mean, the last final was that Europa League final. That would have been nice to win. Prior to that, the last final was the FA Cup loss to Chelsea. And then, of course, prior to that, Jose won a couple in his first year. But to win a trophy, the first trophy that's available, I should say second, as of course won the Bangkok Cup over there in preseason. But this first real trophy under Erik ten Hag that was available to him has now been taken and won. And to be performing at the level that United are performing at and winning a trophy, I don't feel like we've been this good while winning a trophy in 10 years. I don't feel like we've been performing this well and winning a trophy in 10 years. There was nothing exciting about that Europa League performance or the run there under Jose, even though the trophies were still won. There's definitely a difference. But a big congratulations. Awesome to see. It's awesome to see everybody lifting the trophy. I think it's really good for a lot of players to have that finally happen at Manchester United, and we'll put even if it's nearing the end of some players' time at United, I think it's going to cap off with a positive, and a lot of people are going to look back on them with a little bit more of not gratitude, but a little bit more positivity towards their time here under a good manager. It goes to show what a top manager can do. All right, moving on to what everybody's interested in. So there's been a lot of news. I put out the video on Saturday with my information, put out some tweets and things like that. Last week I was told that on Friday it was expected that some parties would hear something back from Raine Group. I don't know if informally or formally. And I know there's reports saying that is yet to happen, but it has occurred. The communication has occurred. Think of it this way. You're seeing since Saturday, since I put that out, then there was an article in Financial Times, from Sky Today, etc., things talking about how the valuations of the bids were not high enough. That's not coming out to them if it hasn't been communicated to Qatar and to Ineos and anybody else interested. So just bear that in mind. If they have given that feedback, and I have a little bit of an update that I'm going to try to explain, kind of what's going on. I know this is all a bit of a confusing process, but I would really like to explain it in the best way that I can and with whatever information I can. It's like I'm getting drops of info, hence how I said I expected news by Friday, that something was going to occur, and that I would be, I didn't know what it was exactly, and then by Saturday I got exactly overnight what the information was. But it's trickles. It's really trickles at this point, which is what I expected at this phase of the sale. Essentially, the Glazers' valuation is up there for the entire club around $6 billion. Again, what this means is they're looking to get a little bit over $4 billion out of the club for their shares. And the indicative offers are based on that valuation, on the valuation of the club itself. So they're saying we value the club at 5, or we value the club at 4.5. And so the Glazers are getting their percentage of that. Their valuation is quite high. It's probably too high, all things considered, considering the club isn't profitable, and the only way that anyone's getting a return on it is long-term sale. And, the Qataris are very interested, obviously, but I've said this before too, from everything I've heard, they're not just going to throw money in the trash, okay? They're not bad investors. They're not unintelligent people. They're not just going to overpay because they have lots of money, like some people seem to think. And it's not a slight against them. This is a compliment to the way they do business. They are shrewd in terms of negotiations and paying a fair price for things. They're not going to throw $8 billion into the club, okay? It's not going to happen. Nobody is. But here's what I can say about the offers and some of the communications that have occurred, as I got just, again, a tiny bit of feedback that I think is a little bit optimistic a little bit hopeful in comparison to what's out there now and is within a very recent last bit of time. Like I said, the initial offers were in the range of $4 and $4.5 billion for the club itself, which only gives the Glazers somewhere in the range of $3 to $3.5 billion. So we're talking about maybe $1 billion difference in valuations here. Now, as far as I've heard it, the way it kind of stands is Raine Group, because these are purely indicative offers and they really need to get into the deep dive and actually look at real bids if they're going to move forward. Raine Group gave the feedback and have been trying to get an estimate, not like a specific estimate, but a measure of whether the parties that are interested are willing to change, go up, or bend in their valuations to where it would be close enough that they would be willing to move them on to the next phase. Next phase being deep diving into there and actually making solid bids that could be accepted for lots of money. If the parties are not willing to or expressing any sort of willingness to move up a little or bend in their valuation to at least get it closer, then they would continue to try to just search out offers and not move things along to the next phase. So again, what I've heard, and this is just, again, it's a trickle, is that they've had recent discussions in the last 24 hours, Raine Group and the interested parties, brief things about this, and there seems to be some willingness to bend on the valuation from the buying parties, that they're not going to drop out of the race because certainly $4.5 billion isn't going to cut it. That is not considered to be their cap either, or any of the parties involved. That is not considered to be their cap. So there's some willingness to move there that should allow things to move forward. But by end of the week, Raine Group are supposed to let them know if that willingness is good enough to be translated into moving forward into the next phase of process, or starting the process over and saying none of these are good enough, we need more offers, or the club isn't going to be sold. So Raine Group are supposed to let them know on that, but there seems to be a willingness that's leaning things in a direction towards allowing them into the next phase of process and seeing real bids. So a little bit of optimism. Again, it's all about the money. The Glazers want more money. That is the simplicity of it. And, fair enough. It's their club to sell. It's like any negotiation. There's no guarantees, but this is the negotiating stance the Glazers are taking. More money, more on offer, or we're not going to sell. And they have every right to do that, unfortunately. I tweeted out again on Saturday night because a very similar thing is happening over in the U.S., which I want to comment on, which I think is very funny. Let me move on to that section here. The Washington Commanders are up for sale, which is a National Football League team in the U.S. NFL teams and U.S. sports teams are kind of the reverse of European football teams. They're they basically print money. They make a lot of money, and so there's very little to no risk involved with those, and so there's a lot of interest. And part of what's happened, where you see these things about not as many offers as they wanted, is there's U.S. groups that have registered their interest, which is where they expected more bids to come from. However, as of this point, a lot of those groups are holding a bit steady on making an offers or really being interested in United, because they're looking at the Washington Commanders situation. For example, Harrison Blizzard Sports and Entertainment was one that the Glazers were hoping to get and enticed by putting a club up for sale. They made a $6.5 billion offer for the Commanders, so they're not going to be buying Manchester United if that gets accepted. And part of what's happened here is that Dan Snyder, the owner of the Commanders, has ruled out Jeff Bezos, because Bezos owns the newspaper that did a whole expose on him, and it's like a personal vendetta. And he was putting out lines basically the same thing. Offers too low, I'm not selling the club. Same thing. But the club's still up for sale, but offers too low, if they don't come up, I'm not going to sell. Same lines, same playbook. They want more money. But that's holding a lot of U.S. groups back. Again, I think there's one U.S. group that could still make an offer in the near future or this week. But that's what's holding a lot of the other parties away from where the Glazers and Raine Group thought they might be coming in for Manchester United. They registered their interest, but they're not willing to bid until they see how this Commanders situation plays out. So what's happening this week is that the Raine Group are going to, again, be talking with the interested parties, also seeing if they can entice some other offers, but seeing if those valuations are flexible that would allow for them to say, okay, this is getting close enough that we can move into the next phase and actually get some solid, concrete bids, money on the table. Here's $4 billion for your shares type of deal. And as I've heard it, there's optimism from at least one party that they're close enough to move into that phase. They're not saying that they think that they have matched the Glazers valuation or anything like that at all, but that is close enough to move into the next phase and keep things going rather than the sale being shut off. But they're expecting to find out by end of the week on that as well. So that's where things are. Final thing to discuss is with regards to FFP. Again, I see a lot of things talking about FFP. We obviously showed the whole calculations. I'm going to reach out to some people and find out if I can get more details on it. One of the things that does make sense, even with the calculations we laid out in the prior video, is, and some of the wording is a little bit tricky when you read the articles. How it kind of sounds is they have money there to make that big striker signing. They could probably get a goalkeeper with Henderson leaving, almost a like for like in terms of cost. Above and beyond that, there's FFP concerns that they need to sell to buy. There is some truth to that, because with the cap based on revenues, while it's 90% for next year, it's 80 the following and 70 the following. They don't want to push that 90% cap. They're going to want to be in the 75 to 80% range this year, so it can go down a little, because they don't want to be cutting over the next few years, right? You don't want to be weakening over the ensuing years. You want to be kind of at the right level already. And so it seems like they're looking to be in that 70 to 80% range, and that's where they will kind of end up. And they can do that, but to get a midfielder in, they're going to need a lot of sales. So that's what that means, but I'll give more updates as I find out more there, okay? Thank you for watching this video. I'll do updates throughout the week as anything comes in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn